Welcome, scholars. My name is Dr. Kara Stillen, and the goal of this channel is to make academic subjects easier to understand. If you haven't already done so, please click that subscribe and like button so I can continue to bring you the videos you want. Now, in the last video, we looked at excoriation disorder. That is a disorder in which people will pick at scabs, they'll pick at lesions, they'll even pick at healthy skin. And they do this because it's part of a compulsion where the acting out of the compulsion helps them to feel better. Now in this video, we're going to look at reactive attachment disorder, which belongs to a category of trauma and stressor-related disorders. This is a new category that we'll be going through, and so these will all have green in their backgrounds throughout our video series. So let's begin. In order to be diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder, the individual has to have the following symptoms. A, the child will almost always be emotionally withdrawn toward their caregiver when most children would seek emotional comfort. If emotional comfort is provided, these types of children will seem distressed by the comfort provided. B, the child will show signs of emotional and social distress when especially in social situations and when others show emotionality toward them. They will also show little positive effect and have periods of irritability, fear, and sadness, even in non-threatening times with caregivers. C, the child has gone through significant periods of time in which they have not been cared for and given comfort and affection and stimulation by adult caregivers, so these emotional needs have not been met. D, this is because their caregivers may have changed multiple times, so the trust could not be developed between caregiver and child. This might be because of multiple shifts in foster care, or they may have been going from one institution to the next. E, this lack of care and inability to trust is responsible for the disturbed behavior found via the child. F, the child does not fit the symptoms of autism spectrum disorder. And G, the distress and disturbance is seen in the child before they reach the age of 5. H, the child has to have a developmental age of at least 9 months to even be diagnosed with the disorder. Now, professionals will want to specify if this disorder is persistent, meaning has the disorder been present for more than 1 year? The other specifier they'll want to look at is severity. We just have one category of severity, meaning that they have all the symptoms and all the symptoms are at a high level. With reactive attachment disorder, a child will show distressing and disturbing behavioral patterns and inappropriate attachments to individuals that are not normal given their age. Whereas adequate attachment shows a child that will turn toward a caregiver figure for support, comfort, nurturance, or protection. When this doesn't happen, psychologists state that there is a selective attention that is happening with these children. Children with reactive attachment disorder will not seek out parents or caregivers when distressed and will often show negative emotions during routines with caregivers. They tend to show negative emotions like sadness, fear, or irritability that cannot be explained by others. It is really unknown how prevalent reactive attachment disorder is. The disorder is rarely seen in a clinical setting, although it is unknown if clinicians truly know what they're looking for. Foster children may not be getting adequate psychological treatment, and because of this, the statistical analysis may be undercounting those with the disorder. It is important to note that neglected children do not equate to reactive attachment disorder. Some children learn to cope with neglect in other ways that do not bring about negative emotions and detachment. It's all different with each child. One commonality of children with reactive attachment disorder is that many of them as infants are kept away from social settings and forms of stimulation. This can go on for a majority of the child's life, but the disorder cannot be officially diagnosed until the child reaches the age of 9 months. It is important to note that children with this disorder don't necessarily have the same cognition and intellect. If children are found and cared for, they can make headway with their vocabulary, social ability, and positive emotions. Generally, it is unknown if children over the age of 5 should be diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder. By then, the child should be found and remediation should be put into full force. Questions are still present as to whether or not aspects of the disorder can move beyond the age of 5. The biggest problem with reactive attachment disorder is the future communication, attachments, and relatability of these children to their peers, their teachers, as well as their caregivers. Depression can also accompany children that suffer from reactive attachment disorder. There are generally problems with negative affect, including sadness, fear, and anxiety. Those children with depression desperately need caregivers that they can trust and call upon for support and comfort. Sometimes children who are socially neglected in childhood have cognitive delays and language issues that can go right along with their reactive attachment disorder. The child may have suffered from malnutrition and may have signs of an eating disorder as well. It is normal for children to also have major depressive disorder. So these children are definitely here. They're in the United States. They're in the foster system. They're even in families that they may not even be aware of. And it is so important to get these children help so that they can live lives that are more filled with stimulation, that are filled with people that want to support and comfort them as they grow into eventually out of childhood and into adulthood. Well, that is the end of our video on a trauma and stressor-related disorder known as reactive attachment disorder. The very next disorder that I'm hoping to get out in a couple days is called disinhibited social engagement disorder. For some of you that have children that are very, very shy and you're not sure what is going on, these are definitely mental illnesses or mental disorders that I would go through and just look at the criteria. Is there a trauma that came about? Did they act a certain way from birth? Did they have some really bad experiences early on in childhood? Did they have a bad babysitter that didn't let them do anything? It's not necessarily putting fault on a certain person, but we essentially want the best mental health and mental well-being for our children out there. So if you have any information you want to share with me as well, that would be fantastic. As I always tell you, I love hearing from you, and I love to hear your comments, your questions, your stories. So please let me know about those. I'm considering going live sometime. If this is something you'd like to see me do, I would love to. We'd have to come up with a subject to talk about if so, but I think it would be a great way of spreading, not spreading taboos, but spreading facts about mental illness and letting people tell their stories about their own mental illness with the goal of helping to heal one another. All right. Thank you so much. I love you guys. You are wonderful, and I love hearing from you. So have an amazing day, and I will talk with you soon.